Hello, my name is Tricia. As the Education Associate for IOUG Headquarters, I would like to welcome you to today's webinar, Oracle BI 11.11.6.2, New Features Including New BI Mobile iPad App. IOUG is pleased to continue our webinar programming with this informative and educational event. Today's speaker is Dan Vlamis of Vlamis Software Solutions. Dan Vlamis founded Vlamis Software Solutions in 1992. Under Dan's leadership, Vlamis Software Solutions has become one of the most highly respected and recognized Oracle BI implementation consulting firms in America. Dan is recognized by Oracle as an Oracle Ace and has been a beta tester of numerous Oracle product releases, including OBIEE 11G, and maintains long-standing personal relationships with Oracle product managers in the business intelligence, database, OLAP, data mining, OBIEE, and S-based areas. As an Oracle Business Intelligence, Warehousing, and Analytics BIWA board member, he chaired the BIWA Summit in 2008 and was the BI-EPM DW track chair for the Collaborate 10 and Collaborate 11 conferences. Dan holds a Bachelor of Arts in Computer Science from Brown University. Please feel free to submit questions throughout the event via the question chat box on your webinar toolbar, where they will be answered at the end of the presentation. I would like to now turn the call over to today's presenter. Please go ahead, Dan.
Thank you, Tricia. Appreciate the opportunity to show you all what's new in this release that came out recently. Let's go ahead and dive into things. What we're going to talk about today, we'll have a little bit on IOUG BIWA and a little bit of Vlamis background. Then, obviously, the bulk of the presentation will be the new features in the 11.11.6.2 release, including the Bundle Patch 1. Those things that I'm going to talk about today include, there'll be a fair amount on the new Oracle BI Mobile HD iPad application. It's one of the major new features in this release. Then I'll also talk about Trellis Views and microcharts. There are a few enhancements to the scorecard and strategy management, new nested folders in BI admin tool. We have the ability to hide presentation layer objects. This is something we've run into with our customers. And some BI features, and this will include a couple live demos using a couple different technologies. There'll be a time for Q&A, and as Tricia mentioned, you can just put those in the toolbar in the chat window if you have questions as we go, and we'll have those at the end. So a little bit on, just a little bit of background on the BISIG, just so you understand. This is a worldwide association of lots of professionals in Oracle database-centric business intelligence, warehousing, and analytics. That's what BIWA stands for. The membership is free. You can go to oraclebiwa.org to get more information, and we try and share best practices and such. I'm on the board of that, hence this is near and dear to my heart. And we try and share this with our members, all the information on new releases and what's going on. You too can give one of these Techcasts. We'd love to have that. Oracle user professionals can submit these webcast ideas at oraclebiwa.org. Fill in a presentation title and an abstract, and we try to keep these actually relatively technical on that, and live demos are always strongly encouraged. I also want to let you all know that there's a BIWA Virtual Summit coming up in August, and so this will happen August 15th and 16th. It will be in effect much like this webcast, but going on for multiple hours. You can join in and leave and come back, that type of thing. It is free. You can attend from your desktop. The list of topics is there listed on the screen, and there's more information at oraclebiwasig.blogspot.com, and you can register using those two links. You do need to register for each of the days. They are in effect 5-hour webinars that you can come and leave, that type of thing, but we encourage you to come for both days. So you don't have to travel for this one. With that, a little bit of background on where I'm coming from on this stuff. Vlamis Software was founded in '92 in Kansas City. We've developed more than 200 Oracle BI systems. We specialize in Oracle-based data warehousing and business intelligence and related technology. We also have training classes. I present at all the major Oracle conferences, indeed multiple from Vlamis people do. You'll find on our website at www.valamis.com a blog, papers. We make available all of our presentations, including this one will be on there as well. And a little bit of background on me. I was a developer for IRI, the former owners of Oracle OLAP, and I'm a co-author on a book on that subject. We were beta testers for OBIEE 11G and worked very much with that, with the product management group. Indeed, have a pretty strong relationship with them. So with that, let's jump into the meat of the topic of what we're talking about. There have been multiple OBIEE 11G releases. These are the ones that have seen, if you will, the light of day, that people come out. The original release was 11.1.1.3 in August of 2010. So we're coming up on really the 2-year anniversary of 11G being out there. This was a huge release with major new functionality. There's no way to go over everything that changed in 11G with this. Then 11.1.1.5 came out in May of 2011, and I gave a Techcast on what was new and changed in that. It's available on our website at valamis.com. That was the first patch release. It was also the platform for BI apps to migrate, and that was the introduction of BI Mobile, the iPad application. That also had some OLAP integration. We use that on our projects, and a 64-bit admin tool is a separate install. That was a pain point we saw in the first release. 11.1.1.6 was just this past February, and you'll find on our website a BIWA Techcast from January 29th talking about the new features on that. That served also as the platform for Exalytics, which was announced back at Oracle Open World last year, and has times 10 integration, fixed some bugs. And there was new features that mostly for Exalytics in there and some miscellaneous new features. 11.1.1.6.2 then came out just this past May, a couple months ago. That was a rewrite in effect of the BI Mobile. We'll talk more about this, and the new Trellis Views that were introduced. Then the bundle patch came out just at the end of June. And that was really just to fix some bugs, but that's when it was appropriate to use 11.1.1.6.2. Was after that bundle patch came out, because there were some things that were fixed in the first set of bug fixes that made it important to wait for that release. So let me just dive into some of the new features then for the BI Mobile for the release is the BI Mobile HD iPad application. Now that does require you having the BI Mobile. Generally you're licensed for that if you have BI Foundation Suite. If you just have OBIEE, then you may need to look into whether you need to also license BI Mobile. The app itself is available as a free download from the Apple Store. This is not available yet on Android. My understanding is Oracle is looking at it and working on it, but now the focus especially is on the iPad applications. In effect, it was a UI rewrite and much nicer. I think they took some of the feedback that some of the early adopters came back on the original iPad application and said, okay, maybe we need to change some things here. And you'll see that today as I show that. That does require, however, BI Server 11.1.1.6.2, so make sure you upgrade to that to use that BI Mobile application. Some of the things in that, there's a new application shell, and that includes the ability to see recent things that have changed. There's favorites in there, recent content, dashboards, there's a search, there are alerts in there also. It also allows for some better interactivity and multi-touch support. The prompts now use the iPad native controls, and you'll see that as we go through that. Their charts and gauges work just like the regular web front end with tooltips, drill, master detail linking. Indeed, when it comes to interacting with a dashboard, really the features that are available on a browser are also available using an iPad. It's a pretty nice experience. Example of something, the map views zoom with multi-touch support. We'll try and show that. And there's even location intelligence in there. If you hit the little man, it'll show where your iPad is right now and zoom the map to that location. Also new in here is the ability to have offline capabilities. This is where people would say, hey, you know, I may need to be able to show some screens when I'm going in and talking to a customer, and I want to make that available even if I can't get at the internet and I can't hit a server, the local content is always available. It's also refreshable on demand. And as I mentioned, GPS capabilities are built into the map views. This is what the home screen looks like. There are alerts at a glance. You can flip through a carousel view for recently viewed content. There are thumbnails and previews. That allows you to say, what does that dashboard look like? Gosh, how do I find that? Now they appear with what the dashboard last showed as you go through this carousel view. There's quick access to favorites, dashboards. There's the ability to print things, and there's the ability to email stuff. In terms of the prompting, now the prompts are part of the native BI mobile application shell. So there you see on the screen an example of a customer name prompt, and it looks like an iPad prompting. And it is multi-select or single select. You can program it either way. It does have options for case-sensitive searches, starts, contains, is like, all that type of stuff inside that search box. It also searches as you type. So as I type that, if I enter a V in there under search, it would scroll to and show me only the names that begin with V. It instantly refresh. Some of the stuff that you'll see on the graphs, tooltips are on there. Right-click menus are now handled via a tap and hold. So if you think, gee, an iPad doesn't have a mouse button, what do you do? For a right-click, you end up clicking, tapping, and holding it. It also has drills, and all the actions are hooked up. Master detail, eventing is in there. And really, you don't have to change much, change anything to your graph definitions. Once you develop on the PC, they are accessible immediately on the iPad. It's not a separate application. You just develop everything in OBIEE, and it's displayable on the iPad. When it comes to maps, it is location enabled. You can pan and zoom via these typical swipe and pinch type gestures, and you can maximize the view, all this type of stuff. There's also, one of the things that's new is the support for line geometries. So you can see flights from one city to another. BI content that can be enabled on a line as opposed to a point is displayable as well. Some of the things in terms of being able to share stuff with other people, there's you can share the content via email. Underneath that delete draft and save draft, you can see perhaps click to view this in the desktop application as an example of being able to email some of this type of content. I'm looking at something, I want to share it with somebody else. You have the ability to email it directly out of the iPad. This launches the BI mobile app if somebody's looking at an iPad, and the content is attached as a .html file, or it can be inline within the email body on what you're looking at. So it's easy to share with other people. As well, you can save the content for offline use, as I mentioned before. That's refreshable, and you can save that. You can access that. Whether somebody can access it or not is configurable so that people can turn off that privilege to do that. And so you can avoid people in the organization sending things that they should not send across email if you want. So with that, let me go ahead and show you a demonstration of that. I'm going to do this actually in two ways. I want you to be able to see what the iPad experience is kind of like. So I actually have a webcam trained on an iPad. This is an iPad 3. And to show you what this is like so you can see what it's like to interact with this thing. So at this point, I'm looking at the home screen, and this carousel view that I was talking about, these are the most recent screens that I've been looking at. I can flick this back and forth and look at these. I'll show you in a better, I know it's hard to see the screen on this, so I'll show you a better application of this in just a moment. So if I come in here and look at a specific screen and bring up this type of Trellis chart, and I'll give you a preview of what the Trellis charts, I'll show that in the browser in a little bit, but I can look at that and then I can zoom in on something so you can kind of see what it's like, zoom on that, and then be able to come in here and edit these things on the iPad. It's a pretty nice interface. All right, and then I can also come in here and look at another example of another chart. If I drop this down, I can see the various different types of other panels that I can go to. Other pages are represented in this way on here. And so at this point, what I really want to do is come in and notice how you can drill in on that and come in and show you what a demo looks like. Use another device because I know the screen's a little small on there, but I wanted you to be able to see what it's like to be able to pinch and zoom on these as I go through this and scroll through that. Let me flip back over to something I've actually recorded in here so you can see it a little better and see what this looks like. Another person in the organization created this so we can show you through all of this. Let's go in, and we're going to start with the home screen and scroll this back to the beginning and show you what this looks like. That's the home screen. This is what sample app that we're taking advantage of in here looks like in terms of the index. There are tons of features in here. I'll have a chance to show you a little bit of this. But flicking through the various different screens in here, you can see previews of what the dashboards will look like. And then if we go into one of them, for instance, if you come down here and look at the recent ones and scroll them down, we'll be able to select one of the favorites. And if you click on favorites, you'll be able to see an example of some of the advanced Trellis charts. You can flick that up to be able to look at the screen in case it doesn't fit on the iPad. Of course, the resolution is not quite as high often as a monitor you might be able to looking at. You can then still drill on everything and see the same data and drill into the Northeast region. If we switch to another screen, another panel of this, you'll be able to see what a map looks like in here on the iPad again if it doesn't fit. If you drop down the list, you can flick through the various different regions and change that. That's using the iPad native prompts on here. As well, a page prompt looks like this in terms of driving that down and being able to switch to a different page of your dashboard. And then this also shows scorecards, so you can see what that looks like. This is, by the way, showing the new wheel contribution scorecard visualization that was added in 11.11.60. You can also save this to local. If that's something you want to share with somebody else, you save it to local, and that way it's available even when your iPad is disconnected from the server. I can also look at a performance tree type of presentation of this and see what that looks like. As it's painting, of course, you get the little spinning O looking at this, and then the screen comes up and paints what a strategy wheel looks like. And I can also use the pinch gesture to be able to zoom in on some of the KPIs as this comes up. If I press and hold, you can see I may want to look at this as a view of that as a wheel diagram, or indeed I can come in here and drill in on, for instance, New England. Maybe I want to add a comment to that. Again, press and hold to do kind of a right click, add a comment on there, and then it comes up with the native iPad type of dialog box, and I can put in a subject and start typing on the keypad to do that. I wasn't quite brave enough to do this live in front of you where you see all my spelling mistakes. So then I'm going to put in a comment, say, hey, what's going on here? I don't understand why we are behind on this. Pete, can you explain what's going on this, or look into this further? So then you click on OK, and then that comment shows up as a comment next to that KPI, so I can share that with others in the organization and ask somebody really truly collaborative business types of efforts in here. So then you can also look at other types of dashboards. If I, for instance, want to look at what have I already stored away here on my local iPad because I'm disconnected from the server, I can bring those up and look at those views instantaneously, and then I can also refresh them to get the latest data on here. So some of these, by the way, these are optimized for an iPad type of presentation and doing things like increasing the font size and such. Your dashboards work, but some of them you may want to change the way it looks to be able to make it more appropriate for an iPad on a smaller screen, that type of thing. You can also, normal things with just a pivot table works. You can drill in on specific values on a regular pivot table. All that type of stuff that you would expect works as well on the iPad. Just clicking on the plus with your finger, something like that. And then you can go farther into the hierarchy. This is some of the hierarchical columns that were introduced. At that point, you can also see alerts up in the upper right-hand corner that alerts appear in terms of looking at this. And so that kind of shows you a little bit of what the iPad looks like and goes into a few more features on there. So at this point, let's jump into some of the other features. The other major thing in this release besides the new iPad application is the ability to have Trellis Views. These Trellis Views were introduced originally at Oracle Open World last year. They were not in the 11.116 release that first came out, and then were added in 11.116.2. One of the things you'll find is that these Trellis Views, even though Larry Ellison, when he was showing them, kind of tied it to the whole Exalytics message, it does not require an Exalytics box to show. But you do need somewhat of a fast presentation server. With this coming out as recently as has, we have not had a chance to really see how fast does that mean, but we expect that it will require some horsepower to do this on the presentation server. You can look at lots of data in a very compact form. It's capable of very dense visualizations, great for getting a snapshot of trending, how things are working, and comparing patterns across various dimension values. And as it turns out, Oracle put in two different types of Trellis Views, a simple, which shows full graphs per each cell, or an advanced, which kind of looks like spark lines. There's no scales per cell, and we'll go over those differences in just a little bit. The thing to bear in mind is you need to think a little bit what you're trying to show on a Trellis chart, because there's a lot there. If you take, for instance, the simple ones, that's a single type of inner visualization. I've got two screenshots to show you what those look like. And so just be aware that inside each cell, everything has to be the same. So the one in back is showing a bubble chart. The one in front is showing a combination of a line and a bar chart. There's common synchronized scale across all of your graphs. And this is something you'll need to bear in mind if you want to show something that has distinctly different scales, such as looking at the total U.S. versus drilling down into a specific state. And your down dimension on this, which right now is shown as region, if that instead was a hierarchical column and you show total U.S. drilled down to specific states, you'll find that the total U.S. sales, for instance, would swamp the others for measurements such as sales. So there may be an advantage in looking at ratio type of measures that are automatically scaled across multiple dimension values. The scale automatically shows by default. You can turn that off. You see that over here on number of routes covered, showing the scale over on the right. There are lots of different graph types, the ones that you're familiar with: vertical bar, horizontal bar, line area, line bar, pie, scatter, and bubble. All of that is available, and you can see it view as, and that drops down so you can see what that looks like. This is showing an edit view. In contrast, the advanced Trellis charts then think of that as more of a pivot table with the numbers or the graphs in cells. Each microchart, each of those is called a microchart. Each of the measures can have its own scale, and that's not shown. So for instance, in here, when you see the airtime, the minutes is shown as a number here, and you can guess that the passenger times miles, that chart is going to have a very different value for South region versus Midwest region, yet it all shows with the different scales. And so the bars, otherwise the bars would be absolutely tiny for some of these regions. This is used especially to show trend lines and how things vary over time. Typically, you would put time across inside each of these cells because this has to be ordered, and we're not showing any kind of x-axis here. So you have no idea what this would be. It's implied here that it's time, and in this case, probably month. You can also have different visualizations for different measures. Here is shown the 4 that you have a choice between: a spark bar, a spark line, spark area, and numbers. You can show just the numbers. Those are your choices in this release. So with that, let me go ahead and show you a little bit of what that looks like in the browser window. So this is the home screen, and if I come in here and just show, let me just show real quick while I'm here what the index looks like. And in here, this is OBIE 111162. By the way, I'll have a link for how you get access to this yourself. But this in blue is showing, in bright blue, the things that have changed in this release. This came out in version 207 of BI Sample App. You can download this as a virtual machine and run it yourself and have access to all of this content and see how Oracle has put together many of these visualizations. It's a great way to learn the product, although in some cases a little overwhelming with all the stuff that's out here. So let me go ahead and show you some of the other things. If we come in and look at drop down and look at one of my favorites that I've set up here is the Trellis Airlines one. So I'm going to show you what these Trellis charts look like for real. So this is that bubble chart that I was showing before. Lots of other examples in here we can go through. But if I go here and just edit this, you'll see some of the capabilities. This is an example of a simple Trellis chart. So if I come in here and then click Edit on that specific Trellis view, you'll see that I can change how I'm going to display it as bubbles, pies, scatters, whatever. And then that is represented in here in the chart as I change this. And then I can obviously swap the columns with the rows just like you would expect to be able to look at this differently. And then you can change the prompting for this and how you want to display it. There's as well inside here, inside the settings, all of the properties you would expect to change the scale, titles and labels, you know, go for it. Change a lot of things if you want. So that gives you a sense of what the simple ones look like. So I'm going to come out here and also look at, let's just look at what one of the ones looks like for a complex visualization. So this is, as opposed to a simple Trellis chart, this is an advanced Trellis chart, the one down below. You'll notice this is different in that it has different visualizations in here, bar charts that appear, and you can see as you hover over these, it'll show you what the start, max, min, and end is for each one of these, and you can drill into each one of these, of course, as well. And then you can look at spark lines, spark bars, areas, or you can look at numbers on these things as well. So if I come in here and edit this, you can see some of the things that you can do in editing these types of Trellis and advanced Trellis view. The visualization, this took a little bit for me to see in here. How do I change these things? This is how you switch what measure you're changing right now. So freight, tons times miles, you scroll these around, and that is what you can see in here in terms of the spark line, numbers, and so forth. And add these lines for each month. This is how you'd know that each one of these is month. Given that there's no way to see that as a user, you may want to put that in the title to say that each of the bars represents a month or something like that so people know. And obviously, for what month? It's implied it's the current year, but you need to make that available to your users in some form or fashion. So let me just, in case there's somebody here that's seeing this for the first time, let me show you a little bit what it takes just to create a new presentation for the first time. If I come in here and I'll go ahead and show you what these look like for building a new presentation. If I want to just look at something as simple as by time, by product, I want to see something like sales. And I'll just click a base fact and look at revenue. This is kind of the most simple demo I'm looking at. This is also showing the hierarchical columns, which were introduced in previous releases. But I just want to quickly show what you can do in terms of creating a pivot table very quickly that shows the data for these. And then if I want to add new visualizations, this is where the new Trellis charts show up. I can specify I want to see this as a simple Trellis chart, pivot tables. By the way, maps are in here, other types of views to create. Then creating dashboards is a matter of taking these analyses that you create and putting them into a type of dashboard and saving that away. So at this point, this is what a Trellis chart looks like for looking at this, and I can change this all around and make this make a lot more sense. I can also come in here and add a new view that is perhaps an advanced Trellis chart, and come in here and start editing. This will make a lot more sense if I add more time periods and more products to this as I look at this. And change, this is where I'd come in and start editing this type of thing to say what the bars are. It'd make more sense to make these time and change this with measures and such. Okay. Anyway, that's give you a sense of what these look like with the Trellis charts. Let me come out and talk about some of the other features in the product. So with the advanced Trellis charts, that's what I see us using in many cases, just because it automatically eliminates the scale and the problem of having multiple scales running on this. Anybody that's graphed stuff knows before, one of the problems you run into is the data is quite often at vastly different scales for different measurements and such. In the area of scorecard and strategy management, one of the things that we've run into is needing to reorder objects in the initiatives and strategy pane. So you can right-click, cut, and paste. This is what that kind of looks like. You right-click and you can take an objective and move it, and cut it and paste before, after, that type of thing, so you can now better reorder these types. And this type of stuff you run into in the real world as you start to use the product. You can also create smart watch lists in the scorecards in addition to KPI watch lists. And there's also now the ability to write back to Essbase. And so there's a write back capability of entering into these, and it'll automatically write back to Essbase queues. One of the things that's also in here is the ability to nest folders. And this is a little different from what I was expecting, but it was limited to one level of nesting. Now you can have multiple layers of nesting. So if you look at this over here under the subject areas, you can see various child presentation tables. And we didn't have the ability to put these in folders before. That shows up by going into BI Admin Tool, and there's a tab on there called Child Presentation Tables. And so for alternate calendars, I can specify that Julian Cal and Fiscal Cal are children of that, and that way they become indented when the user ultimately looks at this in Answers, the ad hoc capability of OBIEE. So that's how you set that up. Notice that in BI Admin Tool, they don't appear indented. So just don't let that surprise you. I guess that's by design. I would like to see them indented, but maybe there's a reason why that can't be as easily programmed that way. We also have, yay, the ability to hide presentation objects. I don't know if anybody else has run into this, but there's times when you want to create a presentation area, and then you don't want to expose that to everybody because it's just too much for everybody to look at. So you want to be able to hide them without having to have multiple versions of RPDs with some things exposed and some things not exposed. It allows a lot more flexibility when creating RPDs. You can put out things out there that are maybe only there for testing while your development group is still working on it, yet some users can't see the new stuff yet, so they aren't confused by it and start telling you all the things that you know are still wrong with those new objects while you're trying to work on it. It allows it to roll out the features to groups of users, and that's done via this hide object if type of capability that's in the presentation table area. You can use expressions for that, and lots of capabilities in this expression builder. There's lots of flexibility in that capability. Let me just show that real quick so you can see what that looks like in BI Admin Tool. So I've got BI Admin Tool 11.11.6.2. If you don't know, that's downloadable from when you're running Answers. You can just say, install this, please, and it'll install it on your desktop. So in here, I've got alternate calendars, and notice that Julian Cal and Fiscal Cal, I come in here and specify properties. This comes up and asks me what are the child presentation tables of alternate calendars. I can see Julian and Fiscal in here, and that will make them indent when I'm showing the front end. So then I can also come in here and specify as various properties on here. If I come to the General tab, it'll say hide object if, and then I can put an expression in here so that people don't see these alternate calendars that we're working on right now. And there's an expression builder that allows me to specify any clause I want as to when to hide that specific folder or those specific visualizations or those columns, that type of thing in here. All right, so some of the features in BI Server, there's a new model checker manager for aggregates. It checks for things like level primary keys that are not unique. You can also filter to only check where you have statistics calculated on that. Also, it'll continue on creating aggregates even if one aggregate fails is the type of thing you run into when trying to do this. Oops, I don't want you to kill the entire job just because one aggregate table failed. You can delete the aggregates to delete the orphan dimension tables, for instance, that are not used. And you can now, a new thing that will be interesting to play around with more is using ODBC and JDBC to get some diagnostic information from BI Server. You can use ODBC with NQ command to obtain statistics, and there's lots of parameters in there, by the way, such as queries per second, total number of sessions, cache hits, all that type of stuff is there and exposable, so that you can now start to do things like report to management. This is how we're doing it. It allows you to really use BI Server more in a production type of facility where you may want to report to people, yeah, everything's great. Well, what does that mean? How many queries are we doing? And allows you to monitor BI itself using BI. It's kind of cool. So there's a lot more in there. Let me show one other thing while I have you for a moment, just to show you another thing in the new sample app in here is the ability to do some of this usage tracking and some of this idea of using BI to look at itself. And so I'm going to show you, this is in the sample app V207. It's available for download right now. And I can see in here what queries are being used the most. It looks like Quick Demo's flight delay is being able to use 7% of the time. And I can come in and look at what are the most important dashboards that people have been looking at. Queries by user, what users are people using. I happen to be using the user Marty. That's why that's a little uptick in that. And T. Rodney apparently used a fair amount. There's also in here the ability to look at the WebCat analysis and look at what is being used inside the WebCat. So how many objects are there in each of the various folders? What are the different types of objects? There's a whole cross-reference facility. And it's actually pretty cool what they've done in loading the WebCat into tables that you can then analyze the health of your BI system. Now, I should mention that this is in the BI sample. It's not integrated into the application itself. You end up having to load these tables and use this as part of sample app. But it's a great example of using BI to analyze the BI system. So people are wondering what's it like to upgrade. You need to be on 11.1.16 first, .0.1 or .2. The patches for bundle patch 1 are cumulative for 11.1.1.60. So you just you don't have to worry about where you are. Just start with 11.1.1.6 of some sort and move up to 11.1.1.6.2 bundle patch 1. You need to also ensure for those on Exalytics itself, the Exalytics, you need to patch that with the entire stripe. Just be aware of that. And there are a series of patches to apply to multiple products. There's actually a very nice listing of from Mark Rittman's blog where he talks about the process of applying those patches. I'm going through that. For here, I'm ready to kind of turn things over for questions that you all may have. I've listed some various URLs that you can get some information on Valamis software, our website, valamis.com. Feel free to send me an email. I'd be interested in people's perceptions. It's the first time I've tried to do the demo of the iPad in 2 different ways. So if you have some thoughts on how that went, being able to show, the big question around the office was show it with the finger showing stuff or without. So send me an email at dvlamis@vlamis.com. We've got information on IOUG at IOUG.org, also on BIWA at OracleBIWA.org. The virtual summit that I mentioned at the beginning of the webcast, there's information on it in biwasig.blogspot.com. Sample app is out and available. You can Google for it or just follow that URL. They're available. We are going to make this webcast available. It'll be available on our website at vlamis.com under presentations. Also, will be available on IOUG's website. If you look at previous webinars that have been presented, it should be available both in the PowerPoint slides and hopefully a recording of this that you can replay in your browser. Where I got my information was to get it from the OBIE documentation. Also, we worked with Oracle Product Management. Thanks to them for making some of those slides available that we adjusted, but some of the base information from them on what was coming out this fast after the release comes out. But you'll find full documentation. If you look at the What's New area, this is the trick to know. When you're looking at the documentation, search for 11.1.1.6.2, and you can find what are the new features in there instead of having a separate What's New document. And so I gave those specific URLs. With that, let me turn things over and open up the line for questions.
Thank you, Dan. I want to remind the audience to go ahead and submit any outstanding questions you have at this time through that chat box function window found on your webinar tool. And then Dan will go ahead and start answering questions.
Okay. I have from here, I'm curious if BI Publisher reports embedded in dashboards actually show up in the iPad app. You know, I'll ask if somebody else happens to know that. I think they do, but I really shouldn't say that without knowing for sure. I have not had a chance yet to play with the BI Publisher with the new release of the iPad application. So I'm going to on that. Somebody else knows. Go ahead.
Yeah, we do have an answer from the audience that they do indeed have
Super.
that function.
Thank you, audience member. If you can tell me who it is, I'll give them credit for at least providing them. Maybe we have Oracle Online. Maybe they want to be silent. I'm not sure, but great.
That was from Chris.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Actually, Chris is the guy on my organization, Chris at Clatterbus, that put together the iPad movie for us. So thanks, Chris. Question 2 I have is, when content is saved on the iPad, is it encrypted? Again, I'll have to say I have not looked into that one. I'll ask others that are on the line. Maybe Chris knows on that one too, if he's hacked into his iPad to see is it encrypted or if there's something in the documentation that says on that. I'm going to move on, and then if we have an answer, we'll go back to that. Is it possible to go to 11.1.1.6.2 BP1 from 11.1.1.6 general directly? Yes. The answer on that. That's probably later on in the presentation they didn't see. So you can go directly from 11.1.1.6 to 11.1.1.6.2. Let's see. In older versions of OBI, child folders would move up to another parent if the user was denied access to the parent in the admin tool. How does that work in 11G? Well, I don't know. I haven't tried that. And indeed, with this new capability, this is what we're talking about in here. What happens with various types of permissions? I'm not sure exactly, and indeed I wanted to start playing with this and just ran out of time. When you come in here and specify in this property that this guy is a child presentation tables of Julian Fiscal, and I came in here and deleted that, for instance, but then did not have a chance to reload the presentation and see, does Julian then appear as a child of sample sales, which is what I would expect, or what, as I do that. And the person is also asking, what about various permissions? And I don't know exactly how it handles that. My answer would be, you know, try it out and see what happens on that. That's the great thing about having sample app is you have an environment where you can play with these things. Some of these I just have not had a chance to play with yet. Let's see. How is the hide object different from just setting the permissions on the presentation layer? Is there an advantage to using this new functionality instead of just updating the permissions? What we find is that with this hiding, the reason I'm kind of excited about that is I think it's going to give us a more dynamic way of hiding those various objects. And I would say in many ways we have not really had time to think about this in an actual project. But hide object if allows you to put in any expression in here. And the one that I was playing with was looking at the user ID, but you could do that on all sorts of different expressions, repository variables, and so forth. So I think we're going to get a lot more flexibility in doing that rather than having to go into the, in some cases, kind of almost dreaded permissions area and trying to change some of the structure of that. So I think it's going to give us a more flexible way of hiding various tables and such, presentation tables and columns and such. Let's see, documentation to load the web catalog into tables. Do I know of any documentation to load the catalog into tables? Yes. Let me try and show that. This is where I play with getting my screen too cluttered with too many things. In there, under Sample App, under the dashboards, there is information on all the different Sample App scripts. I believe in here they start to talk about how to load these things, and Sample App has pretty good areas where you can read how to load the WebCat into tables. There's a data inflator in here where you want to be able to do some benchmarking and see how it's working. There's usage tracking. How do you take the physical from the clause process? Gosh, I didn't even get to talk about that one. But the ability to load tables and such is generally in here, and I would also say in general people will be talking about this on the web and various blogs and such, so we'll try and handle that as well, loading the web catalog into tables. I would expect you to find that. Also, I find in here under this general index and configuration, they talk about how this is. So if you look at these areas in the dashboards in here, you'll find a lot of the information on Sample App, how it was built and such, the reference checker and such. There should be information on there. Let's see, install. I'm getting a out-of-memory error. I would have to say, I don't know, on the specific installation questions, it's hard to handle in a webcast. I don't know that I've seen that person's specific problem. Will we need to update our database schemas from version 11.1160 to a higher version after upgrading to BI 11.1160? I don't think you need to update your database schemas in moving up. It's really a matter of just upgrading the RPD file version number. The schemas themselves should be fine in moving up. There's another question. We've also noticed that the nested tables and admin tool is not indented, so it's hard to visually distinguish. You know, I would have to say that's one of the things that I was maybe being a little politically correct here. I was a little disappointed in this, in having the ability to see the properties of this and why they are, the child presentation tables are not immediately discernible in here. There must be something in here, because to me it would just make sense to do something like drag this up here to make it a child rather than having this thing of child presentation tables. As I was playing with that, my reaction was a little bit of, huh? Why did you do it that way? So it may be they could get it in the release this way. I'm happy to have the capability, but yeah, I'd like to see the visualization of this done better. Have we communicated that to Oracle? Quite frankly, I don't recall whether we've sent the email, but I think given that especially, I will. I always wondered if that's just a pet peeve of mine or if others feel similarly. Obviously, at least one person does. I share that.
Dan,
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. Chris did confirm that you do not need to update your database.
Oh, you don't need to update the database. Thank you. Good. Do users need a VPN of some sort to connect to the BI servers via the mobile app? You don't need a VPN per se, no. But the question that I would have is, you know, for instance, I would tell you I'm running my iPad against the server, but I'm not using it via a VPN. The question I would have is your organization comfortable in having the iPad having OBI exposed to the internet? There is security in there that you can do, but some people say, nope, that's not enough security. We need to have a virtual private network in the way, in which case you would need to have VPN on your iPad. And indeed, If you Google that, you'll find that Rittman talks about specifically that type of issue in Rolling Out with the iPad app.
Chris wants to add, I'm sorry again for interrupting, Chris wants to add that it follows normal iPad security, including VPN.
Well, that sounds like a much more politically correct way of putting it. It follows the iPad security. Yeah, and that's true. It does. Does hiding an object prevent the user from accessing it, or can they still type the name of a hidden object? I actually haven't played with that, but I read in the documentation as I was preparing for this that the users can still access those data, those values. So the advantage there is that if a dashboard needs to take advantage of something, then it can still use it. And this is the thing that we run into in really enforcing security. There are times that the application needs to capitalize on an object that needs to be hidden from the user. And so that's really more the way that that's implemented. That's one difference in these hide object, and I think that's why they have this as a hide object if, not don't allow access if. It's really so that the object does not appear in this list of things that they can get at. And you can see even in this subject area, there's lots of stuff for people to look at in Sample App. And indeed, there's times when I wonder if I should capitalize on this to simplify my demos when I'm using this, because it can be overwhelming. Can a table be a child of multiple parents? I don't believe so. What I think I ran into, I started to play with this, and now if I come in here as an alternate calendar and I specify properties of that, and I have child presentation tables, and I go to add, notice fiscal calendar is already a child, and the list of what things could be a child does not include fiscal calendar. It took it out because it's already in there. And this is what I found as I started playing with this, that you could not make something a child of multiple. So if I come in here and look at properties of this and child presentation tables and go to add a new one, you'll find that fiscal, because it's already taken, cannot be a child of products. So they're doing some smart filtering in here in allowing to specify what is available as selected. Okay, so I can make office as a child, but not the other. That's what I have in terms of questions so far. That works out pretty well. We're just about out of time. Let me go ahead and give another 2 minutes to see if there's something else that people want to ask. I'll go ahead and put up the slide with information about getting all of this. I'll include the plug for Sample App. That's a new version that just came out, I believe, last week, end of last week. And if you want to play with this yourself, you just download the virtual machine. It comes down as a virtual machine that you can run inside VirtualBox. And then you do need, hefty machines, 4 gigabytes of memory, more than that, ideally, to be able to run this. It comes down as, I believe, a 64-bit app. And then you can run that entire environment. It's a very nice location for running these types of things. So that's available at this URL. Another question that came in last minute, can you recommend a good source for learning best practices for repository building, something beyond just the basic steps? Is there some good stuff online? Well, there is. What we tend to do is we present at various conferences. You'll find some of that in the presentations we make available on our website, balanis.com presentations. If you look on there, you'll find similar types of things in various user group presentations. On that, we, of course, have our own classes that we have with, if you're looking for real training classes on this, and you can go to our website and contact us for more information on that. There are training classes given by other organizations as well, and obviously other presentations that people do in user groups. And some of those, a lot of those are available online. I don't have a specific repository of all presentations across everything. You'll find them in various pockets of information, various user groups, and various forums and such, and websites. Can you install the new VM sample app on the same server as an existing 11.1.16 implementation? Well, the answer to that is in effect absolutely, because the sample app runs inside a virtual machine. So on your server that is hosting Oracle BI, there's nothing to prevent you from loading VirtualBox on there and running that as well. Now, obviously, that's going to rob some memory from Oracle BI. And then you would make the ports available and such. You would have probably a virtual machine that would be exposed via a different IP address or different ports, that type of thing with port forwarding that gets into how you manage your virtual machines. The thing that I think is behind the question, however, is maybe asking, can you install sample app directly into your BI server? The answer to that is yes, but you end up having to do it yourself. Oracle is, to my knowledge, not making sample app, the installer of that, if you will, and instructions available, except for making it available via a virtual machine. If you want to go and rip out the parts of sample app from that VM and expose it directly on a server, have at it, but you're going to have some configuration that you're going to need to do that. So sample app is right now available as a VirtualBox VM. I'll tell you, we have moved that to, instead of running it in VirtualBox, we're using VMware. That works fine, and we're running it with VMware instead of VirtualBox, but we have not tried to rip it out, the new version. We've not tried to rip it out and run it native on a BI server. Questions keep coming in. So are they going to release a non-VirtualBox version like they did for the last version? Are they going to release a non-VirtualBox? Yeah. So I think the answer in general I've heard is there are no plans to do that. I think it's a matter of priorities. They are using all of their resources, from what I've heard, to add more capabilities rather than spending the time on what it was termed to me as a installation instructions and all the little gotchas that you run into in doing this, because everything has to be pretty bulletproof in doing that. So that's why they aren't doing that, from what I understand. I'm getting from, just from here, from Roy Minton, there's a document, Product Assurance BI Designed Best Practices. Roy, I'll thank you for that, and I'll share it with the audience if I can get to a place where I can share. Let's see if this works real quick. So there's a document, Product Assurance BI Design Best Practices. Hopefully that comes across all the line, and I think that may be the document I've seen out there, but I won't try and guess that while I'm online with everybody. With that, I have, let's see, well, okay, Roy's also sharing. Here's one of the blogs. Thanks, Roy. Blogs, oracle.com/PA. There's a bunch of blogs out there. This happens to be the one that Oracle authors are often on for best practices on stuff. So thank you. With that, I'll turn things back over, and thank you, everybody, for your participation.
Thank you, Dan. Before we conclude, please make a note of our upcoming webinars and past webinars by visiting www.ioug.org. The slides from this presentation, as mentioned, will be available on the IOUG website within the next business day. We'd like to thank our special speaker, Dan. You did an excellent job, and everyone online for attending the event today. There's a survey after the webinar for you to complete, and we thank you in advance for your feedback. Thank you again for attending today's webinar, and have a great day.